piece of legislation, the like of which I've never seen before, and it was thoroughly denounced in Uganda by a great committee which assembled there in order to put, and also in Trinidad more recently, to try to put pressure on the Commonwealth leaders, which pressure doesn't seem to have worked. They focused only on climate change, as if you could just separate one issue from fundamental human rights. So, at the moment, we're on the other side of the world, so far from us in Sydney. Commonwealth leaders are ignoring issues of liberty. Here is a man who has almost single-handedly, by a Marsden-like determination, a refusal to face facts, a refusal to accept so-called realities, a refusal to bow down to the forces of history and the forces of resistance, a man who has made a huge impact on the global struggle for liberty and equality. Anand Grover is a very distinguished senior advocate of the Supreme Court of India in Delhi. He has, not content with running a very big law firm, which is based in Mumbai and also in Delhi, and no doubt now it's expanded everywhere, like Marsden's in that respect. He is a person who has set up a special human rights group, the HIV/AIDS Lawyers Collective. Now that sounds a slightly communist sort of description, but in fact it's a highly respectable group of people with which I have been privileged to work, and which is trying to change the lethargy and indifference to HIV/AIDS which exists in parts of India, as it has from time to time also in Australia. I have to say that in India they were not blessed as we were with two great politicians, Neil Blewett on the Labor side and Peter Boehm on the Coalition side, who made such a difference to our Australian response to that epidemic. They haven't been blessed with that. And so Anand Grover and his HIV/AIDS collective got together the conception of a caravan which goes around India giving lectures and seminars which involve judges and lawyers and some politicians on the HIV/AIDS epidemic, and getting them aware of the nature of the epidemic and the nature of the legal problems that would come. And I recall that at one such caravan in which I took part with David Buchanan, SC, who is here tonight, and also on another I took part with other participants, including the famous Edwin Cameron, judge of the South African Constitutional Court, a very distinguished lawyer. And if in India, to the audience of judges, I made a little ripple by the announcement of my sexuality, Edwin Cameron made a huge impression by announcing not only that he was gay, but that he was HIV positive. There was no one in India, or very few in Africa, owns up and speaks about this from the point of view of a person affected. And I know that had a profound effect on the then Chief Justice of India and on other judges who were able to hear Edwin Cameron. Now, Anand Grover is above all a very great advocate, as you will soon hear. And I can tell you that it's his courage that got the enterprise to this position of getting the decision of the Delhi High Court in favour of his proposition, which was that Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code was contrary to fundamental principles of the Indian independence constitution. The most important thing to say to you is that he is extremely subtle. He is a very dangerous advocate because of his subtlety. He is very persuasive. He is in turn charming and forceful, a little bit like John Marsden in that respect too. And he does not accept no. He went up, as he will tell you, to the Delhi High Court with his case. And something happened there which I myself often took part in my judicial life, of refusing leave or refusing for the case to go forward. The case was effectively struck out in very short form. Now, many advocates would have just copped that, but not Anand Grover. He then went up to the Supreme Court to ask the Supreme Court to remove the interlocutory decision which put a bar in the way of advancing the case. Now, every lawyer in this room will know that getting the reversal of an interlocutory order of that kind from the final national court of the nation under enormous pressure, as in India, with huge workloads, is an almost impossible art. But somehow or other, by a miracle of an angel which lighted on his shoulder, he was able to persuade the justices of the Supreme Court of India to remove the impediment, to send it back to the Delhi High Court with instructions for the Delhi High Court to hear the case. And so the Delhi High Court did, and led by Justice A.P. Shah, a wonderful judge who I had the privilege to meet and know in India, that court reached a decision. Now, as he tells you the story of India, pause and reflect on the moment we are at in history. If 41 of 53 countries of the Commonwealth of Nations still have this horrible law as a relic of the British Empire, Britain, Australia, Canada, New Zealand and South Africa having long since got rid of it, if 41 still have it, the way that one can peer into the future to confront this looks increasingly not the parliamentary path. It looks increasingly as if it will be the judicial path, because many of the countries have very similar constitutional provisions to India. Many of them have the identical provision of Section 377, which the British sold in its three forms to the whole empire. And many of them will listen to the courts of India, where they would not pay particular attention to the courts of the Western countries. And so this achievement, the story is not yet final, and the final chapter is not yet written, but it's a very important case in terms of the world. And we're going to hear tonight from a person who is a really great advocate in his own country, who's made a very important blow for freedom and equality, not only in Australia, not only in India, but in the rest of the Commonwealth countries, and in that sense also for us in Australia. So I have much pleasure in inviting Anand Grover, Special Rapporteur of the United Nations for the right to health, to